Welcome to A Bit of Insight. I'm Lisa Mosbey, entrepreneur, author of Live Well, Travel Far, and a woman who believes it's never too late to build a life you don't need a vacation from. For more than 40 years, I've built businesses, reinvented myself, and explored the world. And here's what I've learned. Travel changes you. Wellness grounds you, and purpose pulls you forward. This show is about all three. We'll talk about meaningful travel, building income with freedom, staying healthy, and along the journey, having the courage to live fully in this season of our lives. If you're ready to live well, travel far, and inspire others, you're in the right place. Let's go. What if the life you've lived is the message you're meant to share? Not for applause, not for algorithms, but for legacy. Some people accumulate experiences, others turn those experiences into influence. Today's conversation is about power, the power of a lived wisdom, if you will, and how your story, your travel, your expertise is the spark that might be more valuable than you realize. I'm Lisa Mosbey, your host of A Bit of Insight. Thanks so much for joining me. And today I'm joined by Suzanne Doyle Ingram. She's the founder of Prominence Publishing, author of 25 books over 16 years. She is mentor to 1,000 professionals and a fellow traveler. Suzanne has helped people take what they already know, what they've already lived, and turn it into something tangible. A book, a message, a legacy. But this conversation isn't about tactics. It's about courage. It's about living well, walking the world intentionally, and maybe, just maybe, writing what you've learned along the way. Welcome, Suzanne. Thanks for being with me today.
Thanks so much for inviting me, Lisa.
Do you want to add anything to that opening message? Share anything more about yourself, or should we just dive right in?
Let's dive in. I think you covered it pretty well.
Awesome. I found that travel is my teacher. I know you can speak to that. You're a world traveler, far more traveled than I am. In fact, she's on her way to the airport in a few days to go to Vietnam.
Yeah.
How has travel shaped your voice and your perspective?
Oh, I think travel gives you courage in many ways to try things that you're afraid of, like try new foods and go places and all that kind of stuff. But also, it helps you feel a sense of belonging wherever you go because you realize that human beings are the same all around the world. Their customs might look a little different. And I just love seeing the change in myself where at first I recognize that I go, oh, that's weird. Why are they doing that? And then I go, oh, that's really cool that they do that way. I'm going to try that at home too. So I've brought things that I've learned all over the world into my own life. And, even my daughter, Hannah, the oldest, has a Japanese name because I lived in Japan for 3 years. It just affects your whole entire life if you let it.
Yeah. Do you think that experiences tend to unlock clarity? Like for me, that's what happened when I traveled and started to convert and write my stories in my book. And then I'm going to do this as a two-parter. Do you
Okay.
think people need distance from home to understand their story? I know I did. I want you to speak to those two.
Yes. Well, the first thing that came to mind when you said about clarity, I said, in my mind, I answered already. Yes, but you need to give yourself space. Okay. One of the best things that ever happened to me when I went to South America with my son, and I can talk more about that, but I learned to slow down and not be in a rush all of the time. And I was able to distance myself from my real life. And even though I can work from anywhere in the world, so I was still working when I was in South America, but having to walk to the grocery store in boiling hot weather and carry your groceries in your hands, sweating on the side of the road, I made myself do the hard things. I could have called an Uber, but I made myself walk in the heat with my son, and it was fantastic. Like I love doing the hard things because I always say to my clients and my students, sometimes you have to do the things you don't want to do to have the things that you want to have. There's no easy button. So that's hopefully answering your question about clarity and space and giving yourself time because when you're removed from your real life, when you're traveling and you have literally tons of downtime because you don't have to do all of our normal busy, busy, busy things that we do. We don't really have to do them. Newsflash, we don't have to. We can say no to so many things. And so that was really life-changing for me to learn to say no to things and not have such a busy life. People are like, "Oh, I know you're so busy. You probably don't." I'm like, "I'm actually not busy at all. I'm completely not busy." It's funny.
It's a perception, isn't it? People often say that to me. It's like, oh, you're so busy. You're one of the busiest people I know. And it's like, I feel
Yeah.
like I have a lot of spaciousness. I feel like I have a lot of
Yes.
time because I've
Yes.
created a lifestyle that fits that. Even though I travel all the time, I don't have, I'm a nomad. I don't have housework. I don't have
Yes.
landscaping. I don't have
I
things that other
know.
people have. I have space and time.
Absolutely.
And so I
Yeah.
want to tie that to why write at all? Why write at all? And you mentioned your South America trip and
Hmm.
the challenges there. Do you think that the challenges inside us actually, or around us, actually help to develop that story? Why should we write it all? Why should we write those stories? Even if people don't want to get published, I think there's value in keeping a journal or blogging or writing about those experiences, those hard times where you had to overcome. Let's tie that into your trip in South America.
I to answer your question about why someone should write, nobody has to write, but I truly believe in being fully present in the present moment right now. And it's interesting when people write their stories of travel experiences, they're actually writing about things that happened in the past. That's their recollection of things that happened in the past. And it might not actually even be true. So I think for self-development and like personal development, it's really cool to write stuff down and be honest with yourself. Is that really what happened? Or, oh, this is my perception of what happened. So that's kind of an interesting thing. But yeah, for about my son, I have three kids, and when the two older daughters were, one was living in Europe and one was living in another province of Canada, finishing her degree, and my youngest was still at home. Then uh, we discovered, my ex-husband and I discovered that he was very, very depressed. And it was really scary because I'm not a clinical therapist, a counselor. I didn't know what to do. And I knew enough about parenting to just sit with him beside him and say, I don't know what to do and I don't know how to fix this. And I know people listening out there, almost everybody has been touched by mental health, whether it's your parent or yourself or partner, kids, especially after COVID. It makes me so emotional. So I just was like, what am I going to do to help my kid? Like, what can I do? Mama bear, like, ah, I need to
Yeah.
help my kid, but I can't because I don't know. I don't have the skills. And so, I mean, it would sound funny to say, so I took him on a trip around the world. That's not really what happened. Everything like that happens in little tiny steps. But I've realized I wanted to get him I wanted to get him out of his environment, but I also wanted to teach him, as I've been teaching my kids all their lives, that we create the life that we have. All the decisions we made in the last however many weeks, months, years brought us to where we are today. So you have to take responsibility for your life. And if you don't like your life, do something and change it. Now, when you're 16 years old or you're a child, often everything in your life is because your parents have put it in your life. So they told you you're going to do swimming on Saturdays, you're going to do gymnastics on Thursdays, and we way overscheduled our children in North America. Like they're completely stressed out and then they're on their phones constantly. So anyways, I took him out of the environment and he did his last year of high school online and we went to Mexico. I rented out my house for 8 months. I took him to Mexico for the first 3.5 months because he was a competitive gymnast and they have a really good gymnastics program in Puerto Vallarta. It's called the Ivan Gomez Gymnastics Institute or something like that. So we went there and then we came home for Christmas briefly and then went back, but we went to South America, Colombia, Chile, Peru, Argentina, and it was life-changing. And now I asked him the other day, can I tell this story? Because I've kept it secret for so long because I felt like his mental health struggles weren't mine to share. He says, Mom, you have to tell people because I'm so glad I didn't die. And I'm like, oh,
That's so heavy.
heart-wrenching. Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? One thing I want to say to you is that just came to mind about something you asked me earlier. Why tell your story? And this is really important because this is my favorite quote. To the world, you might be one person, but to one person, you might be the world.
Yeah.
It's very powerful to tell your story because everybody wants a sense of belonging. And if someone can read your story and go, "Oh, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one. Thank you." It's important.
And you're not just sharing that to tell that story, but because there's a book to follow that you're going to actually share this experience with folks. So
Yes, that's
definitely
my
stay
current book.
connected. Yeah, stay connected to this lady if you want to learn more about that story and the struggles, and maybe get some perspective on how you may help a loved one in your life. I want to talk about why so many people dismiss their own life as not interesting enough, and yet we hear that other phrase that's your mess becomes your message. Sometimes we have to walk through the hard stuff and then that becomes our message. So shameless plug, that was
Yes,
that's
your
where my
book.
yeah, that's where my book came from. Is when I was in Peru, my dad had died 2 months earlier, 3 months earlier, and
Oh,
I was there, and I'm sitting there, and I hear his wisdom in my ear in a coffee shop in Peru, and I'm walking, and life is hard, and I watched him struggle and suffer in his own body as he drowned with mesothelioma type stuff in his lungs,
oh,
and the book just poured out. And so a lot of the stories were in the moment. Like I would record things that I heard from him while I was in Peru, stories that he would tell me, or lessons that I had learned over the years. And people said, you should share that. You should, I had no idea how to share that, but all of
yeah.
these feelings were coming up. And so I think we oftentimes dismiss our own stories as not interesting enough, but
Yes.
they have value to people. When people can read it and experience it, they tie it to themselves, and how you got to the other side may help them get to the other side. Why do we
Yes.
dismiss it? And can you speak more to that, about that transformation that happens for some people through writing?
Great question. We dismiss it because deep down inside, most people feel they're not good enough. It's very, very sad to me. Most of my job is teaching people that they can write a book, and then I teach them how to write a book. It's incredible. As children and through society, we're taught to compare ourselves to others and that everybody's better than us. And so we have this self-dialogue that goes on constantly saying, "You're not good enough. Who's ever going to read your book? Why would you even bother? It's going to be way too hard. Your teacher told you you were stupid. Your neighbor told you you were dumb and you couldn't write." And we have so much of this dialogue that goes on in our heads. And I think if people just give themselves a chance and think, if I can just help one person by sharing my story, then it's worth it. And the truth is, you're going to help more than one person, depending on like how you use your book. If you really try to get it out there, maybe start a podcast, like you, and different things like that. But I think it's just so important to have some help if you can, writing your book. Because I find that a lot of people come to me and say, "Oh, I've spent the last 5 years writing a book. Can you publish it for me?" And I say right away, "Did you have an outline?" Oh, you can't just write random thoughts and then make it a book. It's better to start with like a mentor or somebody that can show you what needs to go into the book, how your audience might resonate with it. But I will honestly think, like you said, sharing your stories, there's going to be somebody that can relate and go, "Oh, is she talking to me?" You know?
Yeah. The other piece that comes up, and people have said this to me when I was documenting something, why don't you just be present and experience it? So, do you believe people should focus on living fully and not worrying about documenting it? We see it with young people taking pictures of their food and everything they're doing. Are they living in it? So, there's this fine line, movable wall that is, yes, we need to document so that we can share the story, but don't over document because we want people to go have that experience themselves. And we also want you to remember it, be there, be fully
Yes.
present.
Yes, yes. I think it's true, but I think it's two different things. I think you can be fully present in the moment and enjoying the moment because when you document what was happening in that moment, it's later. You're going to write about it later. It's interesting. I said to my kids one day, I said, I had the most incredible realization. When I used to think of time, I would think of it like a long line, and I'm on that line and I'm walking towards the future. But I realized one day I'm actually perfectly still on that line and the future is coming to me. It's so cool.
I love that perspective.
Isn't that amazing? It's coming to you anyways, if you're lucky enough to be alive, right? It's
It
coming
is.
anyways. It's coming anyways. It's coming anyways. So, yeah, but I do think it's like what I said is two different things. So be present in the moment, enjoy. But when you're sharing, especially travel stories, so many people ask me all the time, where did you stay? Where did you go? Like, oh, I can't afford that. I wish I could never. And I go, I don't think you realize how frugally I travel. I mean, yeah. And people should contact you about travel because you are very good at what you do.
Well, thank you.
Um, but I think, wow, first of all, everyone's always judging everyone and assuming so much. I'm like, I didn't win the lottery. I was worried the whole time I went to South America. Everybody told us we were going to be murdered on the streets. I mean,
Yeah.
we never had a single problem, not a single crime. People are people everywhere you go. People are extraordinary. If you just ask them about their life, there are no ordinary people. It's incredible.
How does writing help people be seen? Because I think some of what you're talking about is the fear, being invisible, not
Mhm.
having the courage or bravery to go enjoy these experiences that we think about, we fantasize about. Maybe we read novels or books about them.
Yeah.
We watch TV and watch other people on TV experiencing these things, but we can't get out and do it. So, between travel and writing, how do we help someone feel seen and find that courage?
Well, just by writing, you won't be seen. By publishing your work, you will be seen. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a book. You can publish a blog, you can go on Medium. There's lots of places where you can publish your writing. But I think that's the disconnect for a lot of people is they're insulated in their own home, writing, and not getting it out there because they're afraid. But just keep in mind, someone's looking for you. There's someone out there that can relate to you, that wants to hear your story. So I think it's important to write it for yourself, but also for your audience and think of how you can connect. And then when somebody has a published book, there's so many ways to get it out there. And, putting it on Amazon is one thing. You cannot sit down and eat bonbons for the rest of your life and hope that a million people are going to buy it. There's work to be done. One of the things that I suggest people do is just take out little snippets out of the book and make a little infographic on Canva. Do that once a week, 52 times, and that's a whole year of content. You just literally make a little infographic with the cover of your book and the quote to remind people visually, oh yeah, she wrote a book. Because it's not our audience's responsibility to remember that we wrote a book. They don't remember. That's not their job. We have to remind them, that we've
Yeah.
written a book. And then getting your message out there. You never know who's going to see it and go, oh, I needed to hear that today. Haven't you seen things online where you think,
Oh,
oh,
yeah.
I'm so glad she shared that? You know?
Definitely. Yeah. So for those folks that maybe they're not ready to publish, is there value? And feel free to do a shameless plug here because you teach people this and you work with folks around this. And I meet so many people who have this burning desire to write a book, but they don't even know where to start. Like
Yeah.
maybe they're not ready to publish. They can't commit to that. But how would they benefit from what you teach in documenting and writing down our stories?
Well, the first thing to do would be to think, what do I want to write a book about? So you can sit down with a cup of coffee on a Sunday morning and listen to the birds outside and just write whatever comes to mind. I could write a book about how to recycle newspapers. I could write a book about fixing a toaster. Like, what are you good at? What do you enjoy? And what do people come to you for help with? So then, oh, maybe it'll be a book about travel stories, for example. Okay. Oh, well, if I wrote a book about travel stories, which ones would I want to include? Oh, what about Peru, Argentina? I went to Albania. That was a whole interesting trip. So I mean, that's something I could do. I could write a book about all the places where I've been and different stories and interesting. That would just be like an entertaining book. For me, I help business people write a book that they can use to attract customers to their business. So imagine like a business coach or a chiropractor or a real estate agent, lots of leadership consultants. So in that case, I would say, what do you want your book to do for you? Okay, you want more consulting gigs? Okay, let's talk about the framework that you take business people through to have a transformation for their business. So it would be a little bit different, but if somebody just wants to get started and they don't have a business, for example, they just want to write their story, then I would say you have to start with an outline. And you always ask yourself, what's in it for the reader? Why am I including this story? And you have to be your own harsh critic, like, oh, I'm actually kind of bragging right now. Or I kind of want them to like me. Or, like ask yourself, why am I including this story? Most of the time you think, well, I want the reader to be entertained. Well, that's perfect. Then leave the story in. But ask yourself, what's in it for the reader? I think that's a really important thing because you can cut stuff out of the book, like they don't actually really need to know this.
Yeah, I slowly been cutting stuff out of the book. I think I'm on my third or fourth revision of taking things out and taking things out, but adding in because it's kind of it's a journal and it's a guidebook. And so,
Yeah.
I want them to actually engage, and the stories are to help them engage.
Good.
I had bought my mom and dad. I don't know if you've seen these. There's like you can give them to your grandparents and have them write letters to the grandkids, or it's like a book of mom and dad's stories. And I had
Oh,
given it
cool.
to them so that the book is kind of already written. All you have to do is fill in the blanks so we
Hmm.
remember those stories, or we remember who your best friend was, or we can think about you. And they never completed it. I know my
I
sister and I
know.
had both bought them different things like that over the years because we wanted to preserve their
Yeah.
wisdom for future generations. They have,
Mhm.
tons of grandkids right now. um, what recommendations or suggestions, thoughts would you have for those folks that maybe they need to preserve some of their wisdom for future generations, for their grandchildren, or for their kids who want to reflect back? When someone lives well, do they owe it to the world to share what they've learned?
I don't normally publish memoirs, but I just did one for a gentleman who grew up in the Netherlands and he was a fighter pilot and he was absolutely crazy. He was amazing, but his stories were unbelievable. And he wrote it all himself, and it took a long, I think he wrote it spent like 20 years doing it. And I also bought the same book for my mom, and she never finished it. So what I think people should be doing is getting out their phone or a recorder and interviewing their parents and grandparents and just having them talk, ask them questions about their life. An easy way to do it would be to do chronological. So tell me about before you were 16 years old, like who was your best friend and did you have a pet? And think of questions you could ask them, right? And then, okay, tell me about high school. What was that like? Oh, my dad was on the cheerleading team. I mean, how would I have ever known that? He didn't talk about that in normal life. So I think it's one of the greatest things you can do as our parents are getting into their 70s and 80s, like ask them about their life and their stories. And it's so fascinating for grandkids to hear about, like, the old phones where it was a party line. You pick up the phone and your neighbor would be on the phone. You'd be like, oh,
Yeah.
sorry, Mrs. Smith. And you have to hang up the phone and wait for your turn. My kids were like blown away by that.
Yeah, I was blown away by that too. My dad, in the last years, he would just start talking, and I would text my assistant and say, "Reroute my schedule because he's lucid. We're going to have a conversation." I don't know.
Oh,
I got
wow.
to hear stories that I never heard. Having them
Wow.
in my
Yeah.
life for almost, yeah, for 58 years, things that I didn't know about, and that I love that. I love that I got to have that time with them.
Yes.
Uh,
They
you,
protect you when you're a little kid, right? Like when my
yeah,
dad was dying in the hospital and this woman, Jane, came along to visit him, and I known her my whole life as like,
yeah.
Mrs. So and so. And she sat on the edge of the bed and she goes, oh, Lenny, I'm still laughing about that. Remember that time when me, you, and Sarah were all in the shower together? And I went, what? I was like, oh, my dad had a whole life, of course he did, that I didn't
Yeah,
know about. It was like
yeah.
some party or something. I don't know what happened, but I think they were fully clothed. But I just think, yeah, parents don't tell us all those juicy stories when we're little kids. And then when we're 40 or 50, that's the time to go, okay, come on. You can tell me what really
Yeah.
went on?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. One final story. You're headed to Vietnam. I'm totally asking this question because I'm just nosy. Why Vietnam? What's the
Mm.
attraction for you there?
I love Vietnam. I went last year too.
Okay.
And for since I was about 40 years old, have been thinking about where I want to retire because my home base is in Vancouver, Canada, and it rains 6 months of the year. We don't get snow. People think Canada's covered in snow. We really don't get snow. I have a beautiful ocean view, Pacific Ocean. I have a great place, but I like it mostly from April till October.
Okay.
So I've been auditioning countries. That's why I've been to more than 25 countries. I'm like, what about this one? What about that one? What about this one? And Vietnam, I fell in love with it. The food is incredible. It's so fresh. It's like so many vegetables. Um, and the people are so nice. I read that it's in the top three safest country for solo women travelers. So I felt very safe there. The people are very, very kind. And when I went to this one particular city called Da Nang, I hooked up with an expat group that's like solo travelers over 50 or something like that, digital
Yeah.
nomads. There's lots of those like Facebook groups. And so
Mhm.
I saw that they were having a meetup and I went to their meetup and everybody was so nice and they invited me to events and coffee and happy hour and yeah, so Vietnam also is extremely inexpensive, extremely. You can get a hotel for $40 a night that's really nice, like decent, right? And the food is healthy and cheap and to be honest, I realized one day I am hustling and working so hard to live in one of the most expensive cities in the entire world. You know, a cauliflower is $8.99. It's like, are you kidding me? I haven't been eating cauliflower because I'm like, it's against my moral principles. How do I grow a cauliflower? You know, I just think it's out of control here. It's out of control how expensive it is. And even places like Mexico are getting expensive now too. Everything's going up. So I just think about my retirement and what is going to work best for me in terms of weather. Vietnam is very warm and beautiful. And that's why. I like to tell people, like, I've been to Thailand 4 times. When I lived in Japan, I would go. And Vietnam now is like Thailand was 30 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, those two have not been on my radar. And I do have another friend from Wisconsin who recently spent some time in Thailand. Here I am in, summering or wintering, I should say, wintering in Florida. It looks like summer out there, but wintering in Florida. And you're
Yeah.
right, it is one of the most expensive places in the United States to
Yes.
actually be. More tourism here than anywhere else in the country. So that drives prices and cost of living up. And it's,
Yeah.
why am I doing that? So you've shed
Yeah.
some light on my life and things that I need to add to my bucket list. And I just want to thank you for today. This is a wonderful conversation. I love the support that you give to us authors and how you help us walk through that journey and enjoy the experience with a whole lot less stress. So, folks, I would encourage you, if this is something on your bucket list to write a book, reach out to Suzanne and see how she can help you.
Thank you.
What's your website again, Suzanne?
My website is prominencepublishing.com, and you can also connect with me. I'm the only Suzanne Doyle Ingram, so you can connect with me on LinkedIn or Facebook. On LinkedIn and Facebook, I've got some little free downloads and stuff. So if you want to take a free writing course, you can find that either on my website or on my LinkedIn or Facebook.
Beautiful. You know what I loved about this conversation is that it reminds us something simple. Our wellness is improved by the way we walk the world. It's
Mhm.
how we live in it. And maybe influence isn't about numbers. Maybe it's about contribution. If
Yes.
you've lived through something, learned something, built something, healed something, your experience is valuable. Don't underestimate the story that you're living right now. The question is, do you want to keep it to yourself or share it with somebody else? Ponder that and come on back next week. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for joining me on A Bit of Insight. If something today stirred your curiosity or lit a spark, don't let it fade. Through Insight Getaways, I curate intentional travel experiences around the world, and I also help women book unforgettable journeys they design. Whether you want to explore solo, travel with friends, or join one of my escorted group adventures, there's a place for you. You'll find details, resources, and upcoming experiences at insightgetaways.com. Be sure to share this episode with someone who needs a little courage and clarity. Let's spread the message and reach more women ready for their next chapter. Until next time, live well, travel far, and inspire others.